everybody, and welcome to Disrupt Ed TV, where every little idea can make a big difference in your classroom or your school. And our guest today is somebody with not a little idea, but actually a very big idea that solves a very large social problem. Her name is Lisa Marie Clinton. She is the founder and CEO of Avail Support Limited, and you're visiting us from Ireland, County Monaghan.
Yes.
And Lisa, it's so great to have you on the program.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
And I want to start by framing the problem. And I did a little bit of research, and I looked at your app. You have, although it's more than an app, and you'll get a chance to explain that. I looked at the software that you've developed and the method that you've created to allow people with cognitive disabilities to perform tasks and become employable.
Yeah.
And there are so many angles to approach this from. I think I want to start with the size of the problem. How many people are affected by this problem?
If you think of someone who needs support, someone who needs one-to-one support in completing everyday activities. So 2% of the population could live independently with Avail. And it's more than just employment. If you think of someone 5-year-old up until 80, we all want lifelong learning. So, but you might have challenges. Someone with a cognitive related disability, like you mentioned, might need assistance to complete daily life activities by themselves. So from children as young as 4 or 5 who may need to understand their daily life. What does their day look like? Breakfast, lunch, dinner, going to granny's house, we're going to the park, to communicate that to them in a way that they understand. We also work with let's say teenagers who want to cook or want to travel train or employment or independent living. So I suppose we start with the individual first. What are their goals? What are their abilities? And we build an evidence-based program around that.
Well, I think I watched the video. You have a couple of videos, I think, available on your website, and you'll get a chance to explain to our audience how to view those videos for themselves and how to reach you a little later on in the program. When I watched those videos, I became excited because I saw adults performing routine tasks in work settings, like labeling products in a retail setting, who normally would not have been able to do it. But they were able to do it and essentially self-coach their way through little problems that they might have had.
Exactly.
And to me, as a representative of the business community, that means that I don't have to worry about supervision. I can hire these people comfortable in the knowledge that they'll be able to use Avail to perform their routine tasks without requiring a whole lot of supervision and overhead from me. Is that what you had in mind?
That's it. And outside of that, we have employers approaching us to use Avail as an induction tool, not just for people with disabilities, but for anyone who needs to learn new tasks. So what we do is, if you think of a job coach, if you think of why we do what we do, think of the prompts that somebody might need. So we provide those prompts digitally on a smart device.
And that's worldwide, right?
Worldwide.
Absolutely
Yeah.
worldwide. I mean, this is 2% of the human population we're talking about here, and that's where that gigantic number comes from.
Yeah.
Right.
But in the United States, there are large percentages of people with traumatic head injuries or autism or Down syndrome, people with cognitive disabilities, and your solution makes possible for them a whole world of employment that may otherwise have been closed off to them.
Yeah. So with a job coach, they provide such an important role to help get someone ready for work, but also, as you say, in work. But you can imagine if you have a physical job coach with you, and actually you can have your virtual job coach, and your job coach is helping develop this. But which would I prefer to have? You know, I want to be discreet. I want to be competent in my work. And as you mentioned, an employer, they prefer if you can work by yourself and continuously upskill. And I think we forgot about that. The people with disability, they don't just want the 3 tasks or 5 tasks that would have been allocated. It should be that I can also progress.
They want to be able to grow into.
And have challenges and new learning experiences. So
And if you make that available to them, if you make that available to them in the application, in that software, then they can explore aspects of competency that they might not otherwise have been introduced to.
Exactly.
So they can, to their limits of their capabilities, grow into a job potentially and make it a job that they can affect and change in a meaningful way.
Exactly. So you just identify the skills that you want that person to complete, and you develop the whole profile that they can get reminders at certain, we have to complete certain
Right.
duties at a certain time of day,
Mm-hmm.
the software will prompt you to remind you it's now whatever time you should do whatever
You should be
activity.
doing this at
Yes,
3 o'clock,
exactly.
or
We
this
will-
is what you typically do at noon, or, right, okay.
So then we provide
Good.
the prompts,
Mhm.
and then we monitor. So, that's that environment we want to create. That not alone are we providing the prompts, but we can
Mhm.
actually monitor from a distance. So we have like a secure blanket, I suppose,
That's-
to ensure that the person's doing it.
Mm.
And I suppose the value in employment, and that's just one area that we work
Mhm.
on, is that the prompts are based on the employment tasks.
Mm.
The expectation is that that person will do that activity as good as everyone else.
Mhm.
And because they're visual, the person understands that what's expected from them.
They're,
So-
they're watching somebody do it.
Exactly.
They're not reading instructions. They're participating in the act with their visual capabilities. I think that's so exciting. I mean,
Yeah.
that's so different, that's so engaging.
yeah,
And that really can make a huge difference. It's
Yeah.
funny, as you were talking too, I'm thinking it's not just, first of all, autistic learners have difficulty sometimes interacting with supervisory personnel because supervision makes them nervous. What's exciting about the solution you offer is that somebody with autism will be coaching themselves using software, which we've got partnerships with other companies who help autistic learners. And autistic people have an easier time interacting with technology than they do sometimes with other people.
exactly.
So taking that kind of interpersonal tension away, making it possible for them to relax into the learning experience means that they could learn more.
Yeah.
And that solution, your solution is so unique and so interesting.
I have a great example
Great.
of a case study that we have that we work with. We boy who, it's evening time. His mother is, she's busy getting ready for the evening,
Mhm.
packing lunches, etc. And it's time to do his hygiene. So typically, what would have happened is that she would say, "Let's go and brush your teeth."
Mm.
He doesn't enjoy this activity, so there might be some conflict.
Mhm.
So what they done is that they've created a task, brush your teeth, and he is the star of the show.
Mhm.
And using video modeling, which is an evidence-based approach of learning, he created the task with help from his mother to do the steps. So it could be 10 steps of how to brush your teeth, but the video is of him. This is how I brush my teeth this side.
Mhm.
Here is how I should rinse the brush.
Mhm.
So now he's empowered, he's motivated
Mhm.
because the prompts are based on him. And he will never argue with himself.
Right.
No, he
exactly.
won't.
But he
That's
will
right. I mean,
argue
it's a
with, or find it difficult, maybe with the emotions or tone that his mother might use, because
Sure.
that
sure.
she could be.
I mean,
stressed or
people have a
under pressure.
tendency to perceive discipline in a situation like that, and that discipline makes them tense, and the tension makes them less productive.
What we're all aiming for is personalisation,
Mhm.
based on the person, their goals they want to achieve, their ability, and what they might need support with. So the software is personalised to each person. You would identify skills based on assessment of what the individual is striving to achieve, and you would create the content around that. So you have an option to create personalised content, or because we are educators and specialists in this area, we have already developed some content that you can download and edit. So let's look at some of the tasks that you could use Avail for. Time concepts, brushing teeth, tying shoelaces, going to a restaurant. It's very broad, as in you identify how you want to help that individual and then create outcomes to how they can achieve it.
Mhm.
Here we have some employment duties tasks that we mentioned. So if we look at brush teeth is a common one that a lot of children might have difficulty and might prefer not to do it. So we try to keep it engaging and provide the prompts. So if you look, what is step one? So we use task analysis as a common way.
Toothbrush and toothpaste.
A common evidence-based practice. You break a task into simple to follow steps. So you have an option of creating, taking a picture, video, text, audio. We try to be as broad that we can provide a number of prompts based on the person's ability. So the person would watch this step and then complete the action.
Fill cup with water.
So how engaging is that?
Exactly.
That this is the child themselves guiding them through the steps.
Essentially self-coaching, but in a very predictable, pre-recorded way so that we know we get the same outcome each time.
Yes, exactly.
Good.
So it will indicate, because someone with autism might not know when the end of the task is coming. So we will guide them visually to understand the steps.
Oh, great. Okay, good.
So if you think of the why we done this, as an educator and specialist in the area, I identified, well, what are we currently doing and how can technology help? So we looked at what our prompts are, and generally a lot of teachers and
this used to work.
educators, would be able to reference a picture schedule. So this is the before of this option. You can imagine if you were brushing your teeth, is a picture going to be sufficient enough for me to understand the action behind this?
No, really what you need is a video, and that's the element that the Avail software adds. And as you were describing it, I'm thinking it really works in 3 phases. The first phase is to essentially choreograph the repetitive task that you're coaching, which is kind of like what that storyboard is about. The second step is to deliver the coaching when somebody needs it. And the third step we talked about a little while ago is about confirming that they actually understand those steps and evaluating their performance in a way. Maybe you can talk a little bit about that.
Yeah. As educators, your goal is to get that person as independent as possible. So once you create a prompt, we should be assessing that to ensure that we're reducing that prompt to, I suppose, a level that the person can be as independent as possible. Some people with disability might always need prompts, and that's okay, but we want them to be to live as fulfilling life as possible. So the software and our research will actually guide you and remind you to come back and assess to see, does this child need that level of prompts. And how we built this system, we have algorithms that will measure and help you to say that if they don't need this video prompt, because if you look at the research, video prompt is an intrusive, heavy prompt. So we could deactivate that step.
Leave it in, but deactivate it so that I don't see it anymore.
Or
Instead, I just get a reminder.
Exactly. Or reduce it to the least amount of prompts possible. So it might be a picture. And that's really powerful because it helps with generalization.
Yeah.
So we're changing the prompts continuously. So we're still challenging the person, but we know that from our observation and our assessment that they can do this task, we'll say 60% independently. So let's change those 60% of prompts. And this is really valuable, and I suppose it's difficult to to provide this data real time that is across the board. Because right now what we see in some day services or adult services, and I've done it for years, that it's reports and somebody seems to be improving completing a task.
Well, it certainly keeps them engaged.
Exactly.
It's
Yes.
very important
Yes.
to keep them wrapped up in it. You know, it's funny, you mentioned challenge, but I think the exciting thing to me about the Avail software solution that you've created is it's challenge without threat. Because I'm challenging myself basically using the Avail coach in a way that's comfortable for me.
Yeah.
I always feel like I'm improving, and I never feel like I'm being judged. And I think that is for a child or an adult learner with developmental disabilities, that could be a huge benefit.
Exactly. And I think people with disabilities want to be challenged, and I think as society and services sometimes we forget, and what we see is that when you turn 18, that your options are limited. That, you know, whatever you have learned under the age of 18, you sometimes are capped. Where we need to raise expectations. We, as supporters, as facilitators, as educators, we have to aim quite high and as high as possible, because if we have those expectations, we can provide those opportunities and somebody can excel. So it's about providing the prompts that's needed for that person to be as independent as possible, slightly pushing them, gentle push that actually, you know, we have higher expectations, you can achieve this, and this is the solution that can help you to
Plus the content can be endless, right? As much content as you want, as much personalization as you want.
Exactly.
As much as
It's
you want.
lifelong
It's totally
learning.
open there.
Yes.
That's great.
And I think lifelong learning
Yeah.
has been forgotten about. That, you know, we all have lifelong learning, so too should a person with a disability.
Right.
So as an employer, I can hire somebody into a job who might have a developmental disability or a cognitive impairment, and I can use the Avail software as a way to coach them It might be a daily task, in which case they might not need it so much because they remember it. But it might be a monthly task or a quarterly task where they might rely more heavily on the coaching, but it's always there for them. And I don't need to assign a supervisor to them.
Exactly. So when did a person with a disability ever have ownership of their learning? When? They always maybe had to rely on someone else to have them.
Give more independence.
It's incredible, the confidence that you can have knowing that any support that I need, be it educational, behavioural support, coping strategies, anything that I might find difficult, I can have that resource discreetly on a cool smart device.
Yeah.
Since I was 17, I worked in special ed and loved it. The majority as applied behaviour analysis professional working with children with autism. Outside of that, I've worked, I suppose, across all of the domains between adult services, employment services, independent living services. So a wide range of experience, I suppose, that facilitated the development of this. And what we looked at is the common practices that we use in education and equipped in skills for someone to live independently, and we've digitalised it. And across the multiple stakeholders, from the individual with the disability, what are their needs, from a facilitator or an educator supporting that person. They want to reduce the reporting side of it, they want to maximise their time, they want to spend more time with the individual. And then you have the other kind of stakeholders like management and government bodies. They want to see that this intervention that you're putting in place is effective, is, I suppose, cost effective in a way as well, but that we're measuring the independence and efficiency of the program.
And that's what appeals to me about the Avail software solution is that it takes what could be a complex life skill and breaks it down into the steps needed to master it. And what strikes me about it is that while some people would think it's a way of programming people to do repetitive tasks mindlessly, I actually see it as the total opposite of that. It's really a mindful exercise, making people comfortable and aware of all the steps it takes to successfully complete a job.
Exactly.
And I just think there's so much power in that. And also, as we're talking about it, obviously we have special education instructor professionals who might be watching the program. That's a big part of our audience. But if you're an assisted living facility or if you're into occupational training, those are also potential contacts that you would want to reach out to.
Exactly. If you think of where we can go with Avail and who can use it and who are currently using it, if you have an OT who is developing strategies and activities that the individual could use at home, you now could have that OT with you all the time because their content is on the system and on their profile. A speech and language therapist, a direct support staff. Think of the current assistance that person might need, and that we can actually give them control of it and have it with them constantly. So from your OT to your speech and language, to your adult services, to your independent living, to behavioural specialists. We also have a lot of individuals that may have mental health or behavioural challenges, and we can provide them the coping strategies and provide them with options to manage a difficult situation. And maybe it's that they, in an environment that's difficult, maybe going to the dentist is difficult, maybe they have, challenges with sound. Provide them with options that they can self-manage their behaviour.
That's, for a lot, it's easy for us to take for granted a lot of the routine things that we do all the time, like shopping in a supermarket. But for somebody with special needs, that whole experience of walking through a very large open space, looking through lots of things to find the one or two things that they actually want, could be pretty daunting. And I can see how the Avail software could break that down to a point where it can make me comfortable doing that.
Yeah, and to a point that we don't want someone using Avail for life.
Right.
Sure.
You know what I mean? This is an aid to get someone to live independently, and our goal is that you can live independently without any support.
And that's the point of it, and it's really a learning system and a developmental system.
Yes.
It's not a way to program people and make robots out of them. It's a way to make them human,
Yeah.
if anything, to bring out the humanity in them. And I think that's now a lot of this comes down to the individual stories of people whose lives are improved, and maybe you can share one of those with us.
Yeah, we have multiple amazing case studies of how Avail is impacting, and I suppose that's the motivator that we can see. We have An example, and you can probably find on our website, of Kevin. Kevin was in employment for 3 years. He identified that he wanted to use a pricing gun.
Cost Cutter in Listoonan, County Monaghan, is where Kevin Duffy works. The software invented by Lisa Marie Clinton gives him the prompts he needs to complete his work in the shop.
I'm very pleased that they've given me this chance with Avail. I've learned a new task that if it wasn't for Avail, I wouldn't know how to use a pricing gun or this pad. You turn it on, and when I press this button, it'll tell me another task.
The Department of Social Protection has included this technology in the Workplace Equipment Adaptation Grant.
Ask staff what to price.
Geraldine, what am I to price?
Kevin, I have air fresheners here for you, and I would like you to price them at €2.
Now we can provide similar support to what a parent or a care staff is providing, but it's discreet. It's socially acceptable, it's portable, and it's more engaging compared to the current system, which is a picture schedule or prompts down in a paper.
Price
Right.
them for me.
So we had to understand one of the steps of using the pricing gun. Within 1 week, Kevin had mastered using the pricing gun through using the Avail software to the point that he didn't actually need the prompts anymore.
So he didn't
Within
need the
1
prompts
week,
anymore.
he had
1 week?
1 week. He had identified that was a skill that he wanted throughout his employment setting. So
Wow.
that's what he could acquire within 1 week. We have another case study of a boy that find it difficult to hear the word no. Like any child may want
Right.
access to something or may want something and might find that upsetting. But he found this very difficult, and it led to challenging behaviour, we'd say shouting, and possibly getting some way aggressive. So we give him the understanding of why he finds it difficult, and actually model the behaviour that he should have. So verbal instructions to identify that I find this difficult. I am upset. So now his parent could identify that, okay, he's finding this environment difficult, and I can identify that, okay, that's a prerequisite, there might be some behaviour coming because of this. And then we provided it with options. I can go for a walk. I can, go ask for help, or I can sit in a cooling off chair and take deep breaths. So he can identify which option is best for him to deal with this challenging event. And what's powerful is that the video of him saying, I'm going to take deep breaths. And he imitates the video himself. So now he can self-manage that challenging event by himself. And that has dramatically reduced his behaviour as well.
And that's, that leads me to another question. And obviously, we're helping individuals with disabilities, but their families.
Yeah.
How does this benefit their families? It should be obvious to most people watching, but why don't you just go ahead and tell us about
It's incredible to think that you can have like that behavioural specialist without that intrusive maybe or program that you might have to put in. I've spent years of going into families' homes, helping them. But actually I was like, well, hang on, if I can empower you to do this, or actually if I can empower the person with a disability,
Right.
this is powerful.
That is very powerful.
So if you think of the options now that a parent or a family can have, they can now go on a flight. They can now take a holiday. They can now open up more opportunities for their person to be more inclusive in society.
That is, we can talk for hours about this. It's such a wonderful story, and I think the Avail software is such a great solution. We're at that part of our program now where you get to speak right into your camera and tell everybody how they can reach you. So why don't you go ahead, Lisa Marie, and do that?
You can get us on our website, availsupport.com, or you can send us an email at info@availsupport.com.
Lisa Marie Clinton, it was such a pleasure having you on
Thank you,
Disruptive
guys.
TV, and this is such a wonderful, I think such a wonderful, innovative, and disruptive idea. It's such an honor for us to bring it to our audience. So,
The beauty of this is you're really improving the quality of life.
Exactly.
And every time with that the innovations like this is fantastic.
And most of the people who watch our program, Joe, I think are motivated by improving people's lives.
Absolutely.
And this is such a
Absolutely.
great example of it.
Yeah.
Thank you
Brilliant.
Thank
for
you.
joining us today. And thank all of you for joining us for this episode of Disrupt Ed TV. And we hope you'll join us again for a future episode. In the meantime, my name is Al
I'm
Cini,
still Joe Ossomen.
and we'll see you again next time.
Absolutely.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.